Hello, welcome back to Chasing the Dream. My name is Ethan Chazen. I am a New York-based organization development coach, and I work with organizations to assist them three ways: to train and develop their employees, to work with their executive team on one-on-one and group-based coaching, as well as provide guidance, consulting on how to transform their organizational cultures from good to great. So let's dive into today. There's something that's been on my mind a lot lately, and that's how most people approach this thing called networking. And there's a way to do it correctly, and then there's a way to just basically do it the way most people are doing it, which is incorrectly. So I want to spend some time today walking through how you can gather best practice around getting the most out of these relationship building activities. So let's start with a fundamental truism. The word networking has nothing to do with human beings. So stop thinking about doing these new people meetings along those lines. Networking applies to computers, and it's a vestige from the Cold War of connecting individual computers into some kind of connected matrix so that if one got hit, God forbid, one ICBM hit New York, data center or infrastructure, you'd still have the rest of the country interconnected. That's networking. That has nothing to do with human beings. So let's talk about what this thing that most people do incorrectly is all about. It's relationship building. So let's say hypothetically you're part of a business association or a group of people, and you get together virtually or in person on a regular recurring basis, or you schedule some time to somebody you were introduced to you don't know very well, if at all. And the goal, the strategic outcome of these regular recurring or one-off meetings is to build a relationship and gauge whether you both can form, you and this other individual, a mutually beneficial relationship based on trust and service and caring. So let's talk about how you shouldn't do it and how most people, unfortunately, are doing it. They're super busy in their days, and as they can fit time slots at 15, 30, 45-minute increments into their busy days of work week, they're scheduling time to meet with other people. They may or may not confirm. They may be a no-show in the last minute. Regardless, they get into these virtual video conference meetings, and they probably have very little idea what the other person does because they haven't done any kind of advanced research and preparation to make this meeting, this one-on-one, as beneficial as possible for themselves, certainly, and for the other individual. So let's talk about how to re-architect or approach these relationship cultivation activities in a new way to maximize the likelihood of mutual benefit for both of you. Think about a one-on-one meeting, virtual or in person, as a marketing campaign. I mean, that's my background. I spent 20 years in corporate America leading marketing teams before I went out on my own as a consultant. So think about it as a marketing campaign. And every campaign, to be effectively managed, has three components or three stages: the pre-event or the pre-meeting, the meeting itself, and the post-meeting. And I am going to walk you through each of those three stages so that you can, again, maximize the likelihood that this meeting leads to a successful start of a beneficial relationship for both parties. So the pre-meeting, get online, go to their LinkedIn profile, send them a personalized invitation to connect with you. Hey, Ethan, in advance of our one-on-one Zoom on Thursday, I'd like to invite you to connect. Looking forward to getting acquainted. You provide three pieces of information, ideally: your cell phone number, your most relevant business email address, and perhaps your website or the link to the bio that you have, if you have a bio online. So that's part of the pre-meeting, is the customized introduction. Then spend some time figuring out what that person does for a living, not just what her or his or their job title is in the organization they work for, that's a given, but also what's their background experience. Where did they go to school? Do they do any kind of volunteer work? Are they actively engaged? Are they serving on boards? Do they do volunteer work in their community? Figure out a little bit of background, because when you actually get to the next step, the second step, so the first step, research and preparation, is the pre-meeting. The second step is the actual virtual one-on-one or face-to-face, or however you're going to negotiate this, navigate this meeting. The second stage is the actual meeting. During that time, it's important that you achieve a number of outcomes. The first thing is you want to connect. You've got to connect. Again, as Simon Sinek said, we don't do business with people because of what they do or how they do it. That's meaningless. We connect with people based on a visceral emotional reaction. How did that person make us feel? So one way to do that, and you're doing that in the pre-meeting, is to get to learn a little bit about them so that you can mention that initially when you join this meeting to put the person more at ease. Another thing that I do, just because I'm certified as an extended DISC or personality assessment tool, is I try to pick up on immediately the nonverbal cues. I look across the screen. I see if they're withdrawn. I listen to the manner or cadence of their speech. I try to gauge pretty quickly, and this is typically something that you can't do 100% of the time, and you have to be cautious about it, but there's a way to pick up on their nonverbals and their verbal cues to identify their personality style. And in DISC or Myers-Briggs or other personality assessments, there are a few basic standard categories of human behavior, and those manifest in the way they communicate. And why I do this is I try to pick up on whether the person appears analytical and withdrawn, if they appear like a dominant driving personality, very forceful, if there's somebody like me who's very verbal, or they like to communicate, or if somebody seems like they are cautious, guarded, but very much the servant master. They want to help. So the ways to pick those out, you're doing that for a reason. During the initial few seconds of that second step, the actual meeting, you want to modify or adapt your communication style so that you make the person who you're picking up on their verbal and nonverbal cues feel a little bit more comfortable by you adapting or meeting them more where they are in terms of their preferred style of communication. And that's just something that comes just not right out of the gate, but with practice. Over and over again, if you can do it, you can, again, you have two tools now in your arsenal. You've done the pre-meeting research and preparation. You know a little bit about them. And then as the meeting progresses, you're trying to use bits and pieces of your research to share with them to make them feel a little bit more comfortable. Understand that you're not just diving into the deep end of the pool to check if there's water. You're not just going to what kind of leads, what kind of centers of influence, what kind of people make for your ideal client profile. That's not the goal. That will actually be an outcome once you strategically determine whether you both enjoy each other's company, have shared common interest, background, experience, sports teams that you root for, regardless of what those things are, that you have common ground. You've built a relationship, or you're starting to build a relationship of rapport and trust and all those other good things that come. This is hard because these are strangers that you may or may not have been introduced to by somebody you already know and or trust or like or are friendly with. But regardless, you're not going to be able to connect with everybody. But this approach, this methodological approach of this three-step process will give you a little bit stronger preparation for whether you're able to connect with the other person. So during the course of the one-on-one, let's say it's 30 minutes of your time. You have, let's just say this, the scenario of best case. Everything goes well, you connect, you spend time talking about each other, you learn a little bit more about them, maybe a little bit about their business, maybe a little bit about what they do for a living. And you've already done in step one, the pre-meeting, you've done some research and preparation for people you may know already that you think are good introductions for this person. But so you end this Zoom, you end this video conference or this in-person meeting. That's step two, right? And I said it's a three-step process. The first step is the pre-meeting. It's the research preparation that you're doing in advance of spending time together with them one-on-one. The second is the meeting itself. So you've already choreographed or you've done some preparation to maximize the likelihood that this is going to be a beneficial, mutually beneficial meeting, conversation. But then what happens next? And this is where most people I coach and consult with, they drop the ball. There's no follow-up. There is no next. There is no step 3, which I refer to as the post-marketing campaign or the post-meeting. Nothing happens. You've had the conversation, you do this. People are doing this all the time. And then the next step is nothing. Those individual relationship cultivation opportunities fall into this black hole of this ether of nothingness. Take the strategic approach of this being the 3-step process. So the third step is the post-meeting. What happens next? Sending them a quick LinkedIn message if they've accepted your invite, or an email or text even. Say, hey, Ethan, really enjoyed spending some time with you getting together as we agreed in the meeting, because this is one of the things that you also want to do in the meeting, is you pull up your calendar, and if you feel this is warranted, if you feel that you've had a strong connection and there's a potential to build something more foundationally in your second and third and subsequent conversations. In the meeting itself, you both pull up your respective calendars and schedule that next event, probably at early as 2 to 3 weeks out. But again, this all depends. So in step 3, the post meeting, when you send that, hey, I really enjoyed spending time getting acquainted, looking forward to our next meeting on whenever that mutually agreed on next date is. Maybe during the conversation, you thought of something that might interest them, a book, a link to a research study, maybe a YouTube, a TED Talk, something. Maybe that they mentioned that they're looking to join an organization of certain kinds of professionals, and you know what that organization or the chapter is in their local neighborhood or area. So you send them a link to that, or maybe you've actually identified somebody to refer to them. You send them the link to the LinkedIn profile of the person you're going to introduce, and you say, this is the person I was thinking might be a good introduction. Before I make an introduction formally to the two of you, you and them, can you check out their profile and just tell me if this looks like a potential fit for the kind of people you're looking to meet? So that's the post meeting, is the then what happens. Now, this is all predicated on the belief or the outcome that you both felt that there was a connection. And you know this is visceral, right? During a conversation, you can tell pretty much in the first few seconds, I like this person. I feel a kindred spirit. I feel something. It's called the connection. Conversely, you can tell pretty quickly, and this person just doesn't appear to be somebody that I can work with. I just don't feel whatever that is, but you know it. We human beings are pretty well adapted to make those initial reactions based on meeting people. What I'd like to do now is swing back to the second stage. So the first stage is the pre-meeting, the second stage is the meeting, the third is the post-meeting. There's some things you can do or other people can do that maybe you do or don't do that either ensures a likelihood of a successful first outcome or connection, or conversely, things that people do that tends to push people away. It's being late. It's not being prepared. Oh, God forbid, it's spending the entire time talking about yourselves and what you want, you need, you desire. And you can catch yourself if you're doing it, and you sure as heck can identify other people. And an effective strategy that I coach is what we call course correction. So there's a way during a conversation, if somebody is tending to dominate or monopolize the conversation to make it all about themselves. First of all, is that somebody you're going to want to work with? But that's, we call that a narcissistic behavior trait. You can say, you know what, I really appreciate you sharing some of this background. It helps me get clarity around how I can help. Here's what I'm looking for. If you know of people or you know of things that can help me in this regard, and then you kind of twist the behavior. But there's a lot of things that people are and are not doing. So for example, to me, if somebody takes a call during a Zoom, I say, you know what, we'll get back together when your schedule's a little bit more flexible. If somebody is typing on their keyboard, and look, We know through decades of research into performance, optimal performance behavior strategies. We know that there's no such thing as multitasking. When you split between doing something and doing something else, you degrade your functionality or capability threshold. But that aside, it's rude. It is just bona fide rude. I'm all for people having pets on their Zoom. That's not an issue to me. If you are a pet lover, then you pick up on that. To me, that's not only not an issue, that's an opportunity to connect with somebody. Pay attention during the meeting to their background. Maybe they have diplomas or motivational signs, or they have, they're wearing sports team branded merchandise. Pick up on those cues. Maybe they have a picture of loved ones on the corner of their desk. Pick up on those opportunities to find common ground that maybe you couldn't during that first step, the pre-meeting, the research. But again, there are certain things you can do. Make sure your technology is working, the volume and video. I've had people repeatedly on one-on-ones switch between live and then they hide their camera. That to me is a showstopper. But you may differ in what you're willing to accept. But understand that this initial impression, it's what we've always heard. You never get a second opportunity to make a first impression. So there's some things to do during that second step of the actual meeting to, again, maximize the likelihood that you'll have a good initial conversation. And then so that takes us back to step 3, which is after everything's done and you've had that initial meeting, what comes next? Now, I'm making an assumption, which I know I shouldn't do, but I'm assuming that if this person feels like a connection, you've added them to your contact management system, you have all their pertinent details, but under the notes or comments section, add some little things, nuggets of information that you captured. What I do before the meeting is I print out the first page of their LinkedIn profile, and that's where I take very, very short notes, which allows me then afterwards to go back and put it into their relevant information, which I will then use in conversations 2, 3, etc. But also after the meeting to send them useful information, give them tools, tips, resources, basically build the relationship between those one-on-ones. And my question for you is, are you doing this? Is this a standard best practice that you use in terms of preparation to maximize these conversations? Look, we all lived this way during COVID. We lived a virtual existence of trying to maintain connections and form new relationships. As we move forward in a post-COVID world and we're struggling to figure out how to grow our business, how to make meaningful relationships, how to grow those relationships and nurture them so that they're mutually, in nature it's called mutual symbiosis, so that both parties derive benefit. So I hope this was helpful as kind of a primer on how do you create structural integrity, or how do you create a strategy around forming strong relationships. So to recap, it's a strategy. It entails a formal structure and process. It's a 3-step flow. The first is the pre-meeting, the second is the meeting, and the third is the post-meeting. And when you choreograph all 3 of these stages effectively, you will do the most you can to ensure the likelihood of a good, strong connection with people that you're meeting, and that the goal, ostensibly, is to nurture really strong, mutually beneficial relationships. So remember, it's not networking, it's relationship building. And the approach that you take will, to a great degree, determine outcomes in your relationship building strategy. Thank you so much for your time today. And I wish you great experiences meeting new people. Take care. Thank you.